Hi, folks. Welcome to another episode of Hoopsters Parents Cafe, a parenting community of a different kind, with special focus on single, adoptive, and special needs parenting. Today, we are in conversation with Mr. Sanjiv Singh, Group Chief Strategy Officer, Trescon. He is here to share with us some untold stories of single dads. Sanjiv, thanks a lot for coming online. It's very easy to find. It's very easy to find single mothers coming and wanting to talk about their life. And I found it very difficult to actually get a lot of parents and single dads who are willing to come and actually share their experiences. So thank you very much for that. It's important that people like you come and talk because the situation requires it. And I see a lot of divorces out there, a lot of single dads, single moms, struggling to lead a life. So people like you should come forward, and I hope more of you guys come forward after you see your interview. So let's begin with you. Tell us about yourself to begin with.
All right, Bala. So I started my journey by working in hotel industry for a couple of years. I was a hotel management graduate, and then got a chance to go to Dubai at a very early age in my life, where I met my better half, or my ex-better half, and we decided to immediately get married. We had that attraction between us, and we were a power couple. I was working for an events company based out of the US, and she was working with one of the publications in Dubai, one of the leading publications in Dubai. So it was a match made in heaven, as we all call it. And things moved very fast. And in the very first year, we got married. We were blessed with a baby boy. And things were absolutely phenomenal for both of us. After being blessed with a baby boy, we wanted to have another baby, and we were then blessed after a couple of years, a baby girl. The names of the kids are Abhimanyu and Shania. And it was a very happy family. It was a perfect family, as you can imagine. But after 5 years, things started going down the hill for various reasons, which will be a little difficult to explain right now. And one fine day, I saw that my wife and my children have just left home. I mean, I came back from work and there was nobody in the house. Everything has been taken, both financially and the kids. And she decided to pull the plug, and she decided to move out of the house. Without going too much in detail, there's always your side of story, and there is always her side of story, and somewhere in between is the truth. I think that's what I heard a lot while going through the divorce. The divorce was filed in India, in Mumbai, because Dubai has Sharia laws, so it could have favored me. And since the kids were at the center of this whole separation, that particular time, I could only think of going back to India and fight this case, which I felt very passionate about, which also meant that I will not be able to see my children. But at that point of time, which was in April 2016, is when I decided, and there were some other factors which I came to know later, that I decided that I should move to India and fight this case tooth and nail, because I have, as men, or any such parents or families, when things are not spoken and not discussed and taken via court, that itself is a shock, Bala. And then it seems to you as if the only way you can resolve it is through the courts. So what you do is you put all your energy and your ambition and your resolve to go to these institutions and ask for justice. So that is what I thought as well. And I moved to India. It was very ironical that when I moved to India, one of my very old friends was starting his own company in events. And it was again a match made in heaven that the startup was based in Bangalore. So I decided to come to Bangalore. And we started that journey together. During while my struggle for my children was going on, Trescon happened. And from there on, Trescon have now become the world's fastest growing future event tech organizer with global brands hosted in 15 different countries. We are now working with Indian government, Dubai government, Mauritius government, Kenyan government, and there has been no looking back. Nice. So with every adversity comes an opportunity. While the struggle of fighting for my rights was on, I had nothing else but to only focus on my career.
So I'm glad things are going well for you right now in terms of work. But what do you think went wrong with your marriage?
Well, I think communication.
Would you blame yourself for the whole mess?
I see a marriage is made by two people, and it cannot be that there's always one person who's wrong and the other person is right. If it was made by two people, it was broken by two people. So I'm partly responsible as well. And when I look back and when I introspect, I realize what went wrong, what I should have done different. So yeah, that journey has been on.
So if you're partly going to blame yourself, what did you do wrong that triggered was a catalyst or it triggered the divorce?
So one of the things that, as the man of the house, and I would say this to all men who are listening right now or might be going through the same journey, is communication breakdown. Any marriage, no matter how good or how bad or how difficult it is going through, communication will always keep both husband and wife fight out all the bad years. I was told by someone that there will always be good years in your life and there will be not so good years and there will be some terrible years in your life, in your married life. How you overcome your bad years will define your marriage. Unfortunately, when the bad years came in my life, in my married life, I went into this shell where it was extremely difficult for me to communicate the amount of hurt, the victim mindset that I created in my head ultimately resulted in the collapse of my marriage. I started believing that I'm the victim here, and when you start becoming a victim, whether it is in your personal life or in your professional life, the victim mindset eats you and it will ultimately, result in you being a victim. And it's very important that people don't get into that zone of thinking as if they are a victim. Life throws you multiple things, When it throws you lemon, you make a lemonade, get out of that situation, which is where I believe things went down the hill.
Everybody talks of communication, in a marriage or anything, any relationship. So how would you look at communication? I mean, what is communication? How much do you talk? What do you talk? How do you talk?
So usually what happens is that when there are any misunderstandings that develop between two people, and if the person is thinking that he has been he has been cheated or he has been put down, it is extremely difficult to have a conversation from a third person's perspective, or having a conversation which is very meaningful, and a person will keep blaming the other person that the other person did wrong to me, And it's extremely difficult to not to become how should I say this, to be able
A
to
non-judgmental, you mean?
non-judgmental conversation. Yeah, so it becomes more like a argument than actually a conversation, and that kind of becomes a cycle.
So how would
And
you
it
change your
goes on
conversation
very
today?
long.
I mean, if you had to speak to her today, how would you change the conversation? I
Oh
mean, one
yeah,
line, one sentence. You said this, I would say this kind of thing.
yeah, I would. The conversation is going to be very different today if it happens today. And
I
there is
mean,
no
what? No,
one.
I'm not talking if it happens today. I mean, a lot of water has flown down the bridge. But if it were to happen that X years back, when you're actually having that conversation, how would you say the same lines as a person of today, with a more mature person of today?
More calmly, more balanced,
Can you give an
without.
example of a sentence?
I read it somewhere. Life gives you a second chance. It's called tomorrow. That could have been a good way to begin with. That look, whatever has happened. Life always gives you a second chance, and it's called tomorrow. And tomorrow is going to be a new day with a new opportunities, and let's see how we can reconcile all of that.
Nice, interesting. But tell me, why didn't you fight for your children's custody?
So there were two aspects to it. One was it was her decision to remove the kids from my life, and if I were to do the same, then there was no difference between what she did and what I'm doing. The husband and wife can separate, or they can go different ways, but the father and the mother will always remain. And this is something that I would like to convey through this conversation, that no matter how bitter feelings you have against each other, the mother of my children will always remain the mother of my children, and the father of my children will always remain the father of my children. And that entity, nobody in this world can change. So if somebody tries to take something away from you, fighting back to snatch it exactly in the same manner is like an eye for an eye will make the whole world blind. And since it was her decision to do it, I did not think reciprocating in the same fashion would be the ideal way to approach it.
Do you have visitation rights, or are you in touch with your children, or what's it like?
No. So apparently what happened was that my wife met, I don't know whether I should be saying this or not, and it is in no way to demean her. And I would like the audience not to judge either me or her, what I'm going to say. But she met her college beau or college sweetheart. And it's very rare that, you get to meet your college crushes and whatever. And they decided to start their own journey. And while that happened, I was not aware of it. And that was something which was at the background. So again, I kept fighting for co-parenting, or let's say where both parents are involved in the parenting. But since she had someone else who was supposed to be planted as the father, the father for the kids, and Shania was very young, 3 years of age. The whole idea was to keep me away from the kids as much as possible, and that is the reason why I've not been able to speak to my kids. I've had absolutely no interaction with the children.
And how long has this been? Is it now?
So 2016 was October 2016 was the last time I spoke to my son Abhimanyu. And from then on, I've not been able to speak to him.
Oh boy. So, I mean, you are a different kind of single dad who is actually not bringing up the child. So, what does it feel like to be in this situation? I mean, there are single parents, single dads who have children with them, and it's like almost they become both the parents while bringing up the child. But in your case, you don't meet them or don't speak to them or whatever. So, how does it feel? And what do you go through? What's the biggest hurt?
Yes, the pain is there, and the biggest hurt, I would say, is to see them grow. I think that's the biggest hurt. Not being able to see those days or how they are growing itself brings a lot of joy to any dad.
What about the initial days when you're going through this? What were the hurt? I'm saying the word hurt because hurt is the right word to use. And I mean, your experience, your family. I'm sure your parents had their opinions. Your friends had their own, their own opinions and guidance and stuff like. So what did you go through?
So when I came to India, missing them every day, and I was the kind of dad who was very hands-on with kids, right from changing diapers to feeding them with milk bottles, or I was very involved in the parenting of the children. And that was very hurtful that I was no longer able to do this. And while I see other kids around me, I could actually see my son in my watchman's kid, wherever I'm walking, I could only see kids, my own kids in other kids. And that pain keeps growing because you come back from work, and I have 1 TB of memories with both Abhimanyu and Shania, right from the time they were born to the first time they walked. It was as if while the mobile phones were not having very good cameras, and I bought a Sony Handycam right at the time when I got married, only to capture those memories. Every single memory was captured in some way or the other with me and my wife. All the holidays, all the special occasions, and those memories. When you watch, you relive those memories, and it only brings pain. It only brings the hurt at the forefront. So the first year, while we were setting up Trescon, it was like a schedule, or it was like a routine that I'll come back in the evening and watch my videos with Shania and cry and feel very hurt and disappointed and dejected and feel, why is it so difficult for somebody else to understand that you are lucky and very fortunate to have found the love of your life, but that doesn't give you any right to plug away the biological father or the father of the kids, and why we can't create something where everybody can coexist. Why is it so difficult in our society to have this, where everybody can exist with? Why somebody has to be erased for someone else to come in? And that is something that I believe it's very important for every one of us to understand, that that's not how life should be led.
So, how did you cope with those? What are your coping mechanisms? I mean, people go through these situations or issues. They normally, resort to substance abuse or get into some phases of their life. So, was it similar in your case, or can you speak about it? Want to speak about it? But how did you cope with it?
I've been fortunate enough not to get into that phase. I only substituted whatever was missing in my life with work, and work became a release for me, where there was no time, there was no. I never looked at my watch while working, and that really helped the company as well. because I was single with no family and no kids, I also got tremendous opportunities thrown by my CEO, who really pushed me, break the barriers. I stayed in Mauritius for 6 months, working with 5 different government bodies, coordinating with all of them for a very big event that we were planning for the Prime Minister's office. So all those opportunities came through me. And one thing that I would like to highlight is that when your pain is unbearable and you, this is the time when you can realize that, do you still want to remain victim, or do you want to pull your socks and pull your life back and say, I'm not going to be a victim anymore, and take this world head on. One thing that I always told myself was, the kids can be manipulated, or the reason why kids are not being, there is no interaction between the kids and the father, is because a narrative can be created. This is what happens in these situations. You create a narrative, you tell the kids about the narrative, and the kids have to understand this narrative so that there is no connection that remains between the father, the biological father, and the children. But what I kept telling myself is that children are humans as well. And one day they have their own soul, they have their own mindset. And once they grow up, sooner or later, they might like to go on their own journey. They will develop their own mind, and they would like to look at things in a more transparent manner than the narrative that has been given to us, right? So that is what keeps me going till today. I firmly believe that one has to be hopeful in life and think about what is the right thing to do in any given scenario. Yeah.
Yes, and going back to your whole divorce case, what are the odds stacked against the father in the court?
Oh, very. So that's one thing that is very terrible, is the courts and the whole judiciary and the legal system is literally rigged in the favor of women. And I completely understand that women are subjected to a lot of, I would say, women have been, subjected to a lot of pain and bias. So in order to protect their rights, the law was made in such a fashion so that no woman goes through injustice. However, while these laws were created, the society has moved, the society has changed, the norms have changed, but our laws still remain exactly the same. The law still carries the same mindset. And because of those laws having that mindset, the legal system in India is now not being fair to men. For example, there are 4 states in India that have allowed joint parenting or shared parenting plan. There are studies being done. There are a lot of things available, but it is not mandatory. It is not being looked by the courts as if they have to follow it stringently. So there are a lot of men who are currently struggling to get their rights as a father, and they are fighting tooth and nail to fight for their rights. It is very similar to how women were fighting about their rights for all this while, and that is something which is very tragic.
And women, who are single moms get a lot of sympathy. How is it with men?
They are told to get married again and reproduce more children. That's the standard mindset of the society. Every time you meet someone, they'll tell you, "Come on, get married, have more kids. Forget about your children." And this is absolutely rubbish.
You're calling it rubbish. Why are you calling it rubbish? Isn't it also that you need to move on?
Can anybody have this conversation with a woman saying that forget about your kids, marry again and reproduce more? So why do we have to go through this? this particular narrative that oh, you're a man, get married, have more kids.
And I'm sure you know people who are single dads. I'm sure you've got groups or people to converse with.
Yes.
How many of them think like you? I mean, I'm sure they are looking forward to finding a woman and getting married or be in a relationship or whatever and move on.
Oh, there are many. In fact, most of the men who are going through this custody battles and fighting for their rights are very determined, are putting their entire life at stake. It is a mission for them. It's very wrong to think that there are very few men who think like this and most men are like that. No, it's not. Any man who has a kid goes through that journey and is willing to change the system which exists right now, which is completely against men being a parent. They don't look at men as a parent as well. And that mindset has to be changed. And there are many men like me who think exactly the same and are fighting for it.
What is the difference between the way you look at your children and a woman would look at her children?
The way I look at my children and the way, I'm sorry?
A woman would look at her children, your wife or whatever, let's put that way. A man and a woman, it's not just you. A man would look at her children. Do you think there's a different way they look at it? I'm talking the single parenting stuff.
Right. No, I don't think so. I have been fortunate enough to meet some single moms, and they are going through the same journey, just like me, taking care of their children, with children at the center of everything in their lives. And I see how committed and how they are able to overcome all the struggles that life offers them. I personally don't think that women and men are any different when it comes to parenting. A man can be an equally good parent, and a woman can be an equally good parent. The role of a parent remains exactly the same: the betterment of the kid, fulfilling all his or her wishes, bringing up a good human being in this world. So the ideologies and the aspirations for a man or a woman is absolutely the same.
Sorry to interrupt, Sanjiv, but how would you say your feelings are different compared to another single father who's actually bringing up the child? What would be the difference in terms of emotions here? Would there be a difference in emotions?
So your question is, will there be a difference between how I'm bringing my kid and any other?
You're not bringing up a child. Your children are not with you. Vis-a-vis a single dad whose children are with him, okay, or who has got visitation rights or whatever, the compatibility in the whole story. How different are the two? Will the two emotions be?
Well, somebody who has a kid with him sometimes may take things for granted, just like all dads and all families do. Somebody who doesn't have a kid with him would really see the real value and a kid, creates in life. So I think there will be a little bit of a, how should I say this? Lack of better words. There will be a little bit of a, more casual, a little bit more casual approach to people who have their children with them, vis-a-vis someone who doesn't have. It's like with any other feeling, when you have something, you really don't value that much. And when you don't have something, you really consider that very valuable.
So are you in any way contributing to parenting of your children?
Yes.
How?
So there are a lot of plans that I have made because I know I'll be missing out on their teenage. I'll probably miss out on their college. But life doesn't end there, till the time I'm alive, I have to live with this hope that I'll bump into my children at some day or the other. And when you have that hope in your mind, you plan ahead. I'm planning how my boy would probably go and meet his first girlfriend. He need to have a car when he's going there. I never had a car when I went to meet my first crush. What problems he might face when he enters into the market, whether it's looking for a job, whether it is the initial struggles of his career life. How can I contribute there? So those are the things that I'm currently working on, and I'm very confident that when the universe collides to have me and him face to face, he will understand there's a lot of things that I'll be contributing in his future life.
Don't you realize that he's already got both the parents taking care of them? So
that doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
I mean, I consider my ex-wife to be extremely fortunate to have found someone which she considers, and I'm sure, is true love. And people spend all their lives finding true love, and they never get it. So if somebody has managed to get his or her true love, they're the most fortunate people in this world. And without any victim mindset, I feel that was what was supposed to happen in my life. So I'm extremely positive about the way things have panned out, and God has been kind. I think it was just God's way of helping me find where I'm supposed to be in my scheme of things, which was in Bangalore. I would have never come to India ever. We would have probably migrated to Canada or Australia while we were in Dubai. My destiny was here. I was able to contribute to my mom and dad, spend more time with them, and there are a lot of other things that I'm looking at. So I personally feel that this was God's way of creating a life path for myself, and the hurt and the pain that I went through was part of my karma, which I had to bear. But that shouldn't stop yourself from dreaming big, thinking about what you want to do.
Since a lot of water has flowed under the on the bridge, don't you think you could always connect back again and relook at the custody, at least in terms of visitation rights? You never thought about it?
Yes, of course. And that was the carrot that is given to men nowadays, where in every single conversation, visitation rights are thrown at us. And I personally feel that that is a complete nonsense. Because just think about it. Your kids have been created a narrative, which in any scenario, my scenario is different. Any other marriage scenario would be completely different. But there is one thing that is common among all scenarios, is that the man was a devil. This man, your father, was an evil guy. Yeah. And that is given to the kid day in and day out to make sure that they don't have any connection with their fathers. Now, when a visitation right is given to a father, where the kid knows that he is the man who's responsible for all the problems in their lives, do you really think that he will actually he'll be interested in any kind of a conversation for 2 hours outside the courthouse, or going to a coffee shop and meeting your child for 2 hours and 3 hours? It's an absolute waste of time. A father will never be able to explain his side of story ever in those 2 hours. And the child is least interested to talk in talking to her. He's just doing, what has been told to him by the courts, that you've got a 2 hour visitation right. So visitation right is a complete sham, which I personally believe doesn't help either parties, whether the kid or the father. And that is the reason why I never asked for visitation rights, because I understood this much very well, that this visitation right is the biggest problem in the current scenario. It has to be a co-parenting plan. It has to be a joint parenting. It has to be a shared parenting.
Fair enough. So couldn't you talk to her now and discuss co-parenting?
Well, I have not received any kind of buy-in, to be honest. So the only way in any negotiation, like how any negotiation works, is that if India is saying that Kashmir hamara hai, so Pakistan has to show some leverage, right? In any, no matter how bad the relations are between India and Pakistan, you can only negotiate when there is some space for negotiation. What has happened in my case is that there has been absolutely no space given to me for any kind of negotiation, but with this belief that he will also quit. So what happens 90% is women rely that man being a man will give up on the kids and one fine day will get married, will make more kids. These are the initial years, he's just going to be missing them for some time, and then men being men, that feeling will dry down, And this is something which I believe the society has to change. All of us have to change that.
Very interesting. That's a very interesting look at it. So how does society treat single dads?
I don't think society treats single dads in any different manner as a single mom. But the only problem with the society is that they consider men as reproduction machines, They consider men as someone who is responsible for creating more kids, more life. And that is what we are designed and we are programmed, which is not fair. That's the only part of the society norm which I think should change. That
I mean, you are in events, you meet people, you really go around, you're in the society, as I call it. What are the craziest reactions that you have had with people, from people around you, when they found out that you're a single dad or single again?
A lot of them said, "Oh, this is the best time to be single again. You're lucky and you're fortunate." And so that's the kind of banter that, fellow married men tell you. "Oh, you're 40 and you are single. Oh, this is great. Life begins at 40 and all of that." So there is no empathy, to be honest, in our society towards men in these scenarios. There's a less level of empathy. If I would meet a woman and see that she's a single mom, I'll be more empathetic, And if men meet another men who are not married anymore, would portray it as an opportunity. And I'm being very serious, It's not it's not just a joke. They would actually say, "Oh, you're single. This is the best time of your life. You're lucky. Don't get married again."
A lot of single mothers normally look for, especially the matrimonial columns and stuff like that, they look for a single dad, or a whatever, single parent, a dad otherwise. So what do you think of that? Is it a right thing?
Oh, it's an absolutely amazing thing. Both the struggles are the same. Both the thought process is the same. The struggle is the same. So if God can unite two single parents, I think that is the best thing that could happen to both of them.
You are a member of a single dads group, right? You call the fighters or whatever.
That's right.
Tell us something about them.
So when I came to India, obviously and it's not that I was an NRI and I wasn't aware of the laws and the legal stuff. But even if as an Indian, if something like this comes to you, you're not aware of. Nobody plans for a divorce in their lives. Nobody thinks about it, or nobody probably prepares for it. So coming back after 14 years back to India to understand the legal structure and the legal hassle was a very big challenge. And that is the time when you look for support on how others are handling it. And while as research is part of my job in events, we have to do research. That prompted me to find out a lot of these groups. I joined a Facebook community, which was the first step towards finding out more about how the whole legal functions. And I found horrendous stories, very sad stories where men were put in jail, their families were put in jail. There is a section called 398A, which is a non-bailable offense, and if the whole family is put in jail because the woman puts the dowry case on them. And then I realized how these laws, which were made to protect women, have now been used against men. And it's very sad, it's very unfortunate that 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 the same husband and wife decide to do this against each other when it comes to winning a legal battle.
What are other prominent issues which single dads in your group face? What are the common stuff? If you give me about 3 or 4 of the...
The biggest is obviously there is no connection that is being created between the father and the kid. As soon as the kid is taken away, lack of connection, lack of any opportunity to create that reconnect. But having been so critical about the Indian judiciary, I would also like to point out that things are changing in a very drastic fashion. There are some great winning stories coming out of these fighting dads who have been able to make their way through and have been able to win custodies, have been able to go for more parenting time, have been able to squeeze in their rights from the judiciary with years and years of battle. So one thing that was told to me very categorically from the very beginning is, Sanjiv, don't think that shared parenting or, well, I never wanted custody in the first place, but they said anything that you will ask from the judiciary is not going to be given to you on a platter. It's going to be a very long fight to change the mindsets of the judges, to change the mindsets of the lawyers who are in between them. It is all very, very shabby, and it's going to be a long battle.
Okay. Any other cases you have? Any other situations which are very unique? The reason I'm asking the question is we are looking at a bit, interesting situations or interesting cases, because most parents or most people when they go through it, they think it's very unique to them. But I have realized that cases are not really unique. A lot of people share similar cases.
Yeah. So my case was in itself was very unique, where both mother and father were in 2 different countries. Forget about 2 different states. We were in 2 different countries, managed in 2 different laws, the Sharia law and the Indian law. The kids were in Dubai and I was in India. So how the shared parenting will work, visitation rights will work. It was all very, very complicated. So this is something that, and there are so many such complications which are there. So yes, I would say that although separation might be the common cause among all of the stories where somebody has lost the children who are not with them, but if you look at it, the scenarios in which the separation has happened is extremely different and very new and very unique in various ways.
Okay, coming back to the first question, very early part of the discussion, what's your opinion on divorces? Because nowadays people are, it's the biggest issue. I mean, the number of single parents are skyrocketing. Almost 20 to 30% out there are getting to be single. And the COVID situation also has not helped, because most of my psychiatrist friends or my counseling friends turn back and talk to me about how relationship is the biggest issue that they are listening to. So why do you think it's happening?
So my opinion on the high rates of divorce is, how should I say this? Please allow me a minute to.
Sure.
To say it well. If I have to compare my previous generation, which is my parents, in those days, divorces were not so common. And in the current scenario where divorces have literally, it doesn't surprise anyone if you talk about you are being divorced, and it has become more acceptable and more normal. And one of the key reasons, and it has become very more prominent, I feel the only reason why a divorce is a disruption. That's the best way to explain it. Just like how any accident happens in your life. Tomorrow you meet with an accident, and God forbid, but something happens to you. You maybe lose a leg or a hand. Will you completely? Will your family part ways? Will you? Does it happen? No. So I look at a divorce as an incident which breaks the family, and neither of the husband or the wife should be blamed for it. It is an accident which happens in some people's lives for certain reasons and circumstances. If you were driving on the road and your car is hit by somebody else, would you blame the driver? And you would probably look at it, that was supposed to happen. Yeah, that was one bad day, and why did I drove onto the left hand side or whatever. You will blame 1,000 things, and of course the driver as well, but you would always consider this as a one bad incident in your life. The problem with divorces is that the divorce is always looked upon as somebody's fault. ये इसकी गलती है, ये इसकी गलती है, और इसने गलती की और उसने गलती की. गलतियां किसी ने की नहीं, गलतियां हो गई. If I can use Hindi, if you don't mind, it's not necessarily that people are bad or a husband is bad and a wife is bad. There are certain things that happen which is very circumstantial. If every divorcee, if anyone who has a little bit of analytical brain sits down and rethink about the entire divorce process, would understand that things happened because of circumstances. अगर ये नहीं होता तो शायद वो भी नहीं होता. अगर वहां पे मैंने ये नहीं कहा होता तो ये नहीं होता. When you join dots. So it's very circumstantial, and one thing that the society has to understand is that people who are divorced are not bad people, whether it is a woman or a man. They have not done anything wrong in their lives. They just could not manage that accident which happened, which led to the fall of the family, or the separation of the family. It was one mere bad accident. And as I mentioned in the beginning, every married life goes through good years, not so good years, and terrible years. People who are able to manage their terrible years are the ones who lead a happy married life, and are considered as champions. And those who are not able to go through their terrible years and fall apart are me and other divorced men and women. That's my perspective towards
absolutely, absolutely. But don't you think there are a lot of cases where one individual actually creates the issue? I mean, it could be a husband who's a drunkard or doesn't want to go and work, or abuses the wife, or a wife herself who's having affairs, or whatever, whichever way you look at it, man having affairs. So aren't there situations where one individual is responsible?
Yes, maybe one individual is more responsible than the other. But usually when these things happen are just the symptoms and not the real problems. A person who's a drunkard, there has to be a deep-rooted reason why he started drinking so much that he's doing all the ruckus things that he's doing without justifying him, there might be just drunkards being drunkards, or a woman who is having an affair outside the house and is the cause of the divorce. But there has to be a deep-rooted cause as to what prompted her to look for happiness outside when she was not able to get it within the house. So if we start understanding those deep-root causes, we will become more forgiving than actually, splitting. Splitting is not the option. I mean, splitting is not the only option, I would say. Splitting is not the only way to lead a happy life. if we could still have that patience. And मैं आपको एक example दूंगा. I'll give you a very simple example that I was told, which I actually encountered. Somebody said, iPhone, it comes every year, a new version comes in, and we keep buying new phones almost all the time. When was the last time either of us went to get our phone repaired? If the phone goes wrong, what do? You go and buy a new phone. When was the last time we actually thought of getting a phone repaired by going to a repairing shop and say, hey man, the phone is still good, why don't you repair it? Right? Bala?
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. But Sanjiv, coming to that,
so that whole mindset of repairing things is going off within the millennials and the new generation.
Why do you think so?
There are choices. The world has become too much full of choices, but for both sexes. And when anything goes wrong, nobody thinks of repairing it. They only think of replacing it.
But a lot of people do go to counselors. I mean, counselors today are absolutely totally busy trying to, repair relationships. So what do you think? Have you guys been to a counselor? Have you sought help somewhere? Has it helped, not helped?
I was in Dubai, so I was not short of any counselors. We had counselors coming from Australia to Dubai on those days. And I would say that I missed the bus. I wish I would have done that. I remember there was a counselor who had come in, and one of my friends suggested me that, why don't you take help from the counselor? And I said, Madan, and his name is Madan, he's in Australia now. I said, Madan, why don't you call my ex-wife and tell her that there is a counselor? That's how bad a state of mind I was, that I could not even speak to her. Let's go for counseling. These mistakes happen, but yes, counseling is one of the best things that can happen, and one should take full use of it. If I had an opportunity today and I had to rewrite the history, I would, my marriage would have been saved if I had any counseling, or I would have taken the effort to use counseling.
So would you said the marriage would be saved. So if there was an opportunity tomorrow and you to go back in time and relook, would you have preferred staying married?
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay, now coming back to this, your social life. You are in a business where, again, I said you meet people and stuff like that. So what about your approach towards women now? Aren't you looking at a relationship? Are you avoiding it? Are you in it? Are you going for it? How important is it, and how does it matter?
So the initial years, while I was fighting it out and all of this going on, marriage was the last thing I was thinking about. In fact, there is some kind of an allergy that you develop towards marriage. So in the initial 2 years, there was a very strong opinion about marriage as an institution. It's crumbling. It doesn't make sense anymore. So you have very strong, very repulsive attitude towards or repulsive approach towards marriage, having gone through whatever you're going through right now. But as the dust settles down, you realize that, again, the incident chapter, if one incident happened to you and one car crash, it's not that you stop driving. So there has been a reconciliation of sorts about life, about marriage. However, as we become wise with ourselves, one has to understand why somebody has to get married. What is the core reasons of getting married? I also would like to convey this during our conversation, that 99% of the time people are getting married for the wrong reasons. I got married because I was 30 years of age. That was the right age to get married, I met someone, she was very beautiful, and I should get married. So we have to change the parameters on the reasons of why we are getting married, to do away with all the storms that will then completely destruct everything. It is better to be wise, to understand the reasons of getting married. Lifelong friendship should be a reason to get married. If you're able to find a lifelong friend who can be your best friend should be a reason to get married. Companionship can be a very good reason that you really feel you enjoy the companionship of the other person, should be a reason to get married. And all of that only comes with time. The only problem is that I wish I had learned this when I was 30. Unfortunately, I only learned it the hard way. So people who are listening to it right now, or people who are planning to get married, companionship, friendship, because everything else will fade away. What will remain is your friends. You know, you have friends who have been your friends for 15 years, right? People are developing long-term friendships, but they are not able to manage their marriage. Isn't that strange? Isn't that contradictory? That how come friendships are alive and marriages are not?
So are you looking for a relationship, for companionships or whatever? Are you consciously looking for a relationship? Let's put that way.
It's difficult. That is for sure.
What do you mean difficult? Difficult to find somebody you want to have a relationship with, or difficulty to overcome your mindset?
No, it's not difficult to find somebody to get into a relationship. That is fairly easy. But the parameters that you want this to sustain and survive and lead to a happy, fulfilling life is 1 in a million. You know, the chances are 1 in a million. Your chances go down because the best of relationships that you forge, in the beginning of your life, it's a little difficult to do it at this stage of your life. But being positive, I'm sure if it has to happen, it will happen. But it is not one of my top priorities anymore. I'm very comfortable living the life that I'm living. I'm very contented with myself, and I'm very happy to the core as a person. So I don't consider that marriage defines you anymore. So it's not something that I'm really actively pursuing. If it has to happen, it will happen.
We're not discussing marriage. We're discussing relationship. Marriage is the next step.
Yeah, that's true.
And so what are your parameters now when you want to get into a relationship? I know the parameters change, like you very rightly said, of what you're looking for or what you're expecting and stuff like that. So what would be your parameters today? Because I'm sure it also, a lot of other single dads would have a similar thought process.
Yeah. I think if your destination is the same, then a relationship will develop. So common goals, common destinations, you know where you are heading, you know the other person is exactly on the same path. Your journey is the space you are in your life is exactly the same as the other person. And or even if the journey, the space is not the same, the person understands what space you are in and willing to commit and willing to be a part of their journey. So these are some of the things that I believe every man who's listening to, who has gone through this turmoil should understand that rather than finding a butterfly or rather than finding, beautiful women as an eye candy or XYZ parameters, getting a partner who is on the same journey as yours, who thinks like you, who has the same aspirations and ambitions, who can complement your aspirations, are some of the things that would really help lead a joyful life, lead a happy life if they are looking for it. Otherwise, it's going to be,
Has your experience has it influenced your social life? I mean, are you cynical or, have you got into that mindset? There is
I won't lie to you. Yeah, sometimes I do. Sometimes I do get very cynical. Why me? And the why me comes in. But I'm able to probably overcome it by being a little philosophical.
So what angers you most? There must be a lot of anger in you. What is it?
I think that water has crossed the bridge, Bala. To be very honest, there is no anger left anymore. There is absolutely no anger. But if I had to really answer your question, am I stopping my wife to pursue her love of her life that she found? Would you believe that I actually called my ex-wife's boyfriend or love and tried a man-to-man conversation? I said, look, she's not agreeing. You being a man would probably understand it better. Why don't we have a man-to-man conversation where we understand that you can exist and so can I. I'm a biological father. You'll probably be the future father. We can coexist. Guess what? He replies back saying, let's not confuse the kids, The kids will all be confused. And so then I realized that it's just not, there are men who are in this position who are not willing to understand. So that's what angers me, if I had to put it this way. That really angered me. That as a man, you couldn't understand the other person's why somebody has to lose and why somebody has to win all the time. Why can't it be, where nobody loses and nobody wins and life goes on?
So what's keeping you going? Where do you get your, the energy from?
Well, I see Abhimanyu growing up like me and being a handsome-looking guy, studying in a US university or a European university because I planned his education while he was 2 or 3. He already has the funds to go anywhere in the world and study. He'll call me. He'll find out. He'll find me. I have a very strong feeling that he'll find me, and the day he finds me, without any anger or any anguish or any sorrow, I should be able to just grab hold of him and hug him, And the same is the case with Shania. So that keeps you on every single day. That gets you motivated every single morning and tells you there's a lot to achieve. Your kids are not with you, but if they meet you, then they should be proud of you. So I think that's what keeps me going.
Looking back, one thing you wish changed?
My temperament. I wish I could just change my temperament.
So you think your temperament was the cause of everything?
When you have a very good temperament, like all cricketers, right? They always stress very much on the temperament part. You can handle the situations that life throws at you in a much better manner. Temperament was not the cause. Temperament is a skill which will help you manage those situations in a much better fashion. Don't react, respond, as they say. So a lot of times people react to situations rather than responding to them. And that is one art which I learned now, and I wish I had learned it in the beginning.
Interesting. Anything else you want to talk about, which you think is important?
All I can say to all the men who are in a similar situation like me, who are fighting it out, getting remarried again and reproducing children again is not the answer. And I really, really believe in this. That is not the answer. If you really want to, like I miss kids right now, I'm in the process of adopting a child. I want to raise a child from the scratch, a baby, and enjoy the same parenthood which I enjoyed with Abhi and Shania. So do something which makes a difference in society. You might probably change somebody's life while your pain is within you, and use this as an opportunity. The reason why the mindsets has been created are because men have done that all the time. Every time, the separation happens, men needs to get married and reproduce again. And that is something that men have to change to bring about that change and how people look at men. So that's my my message to all the listeners here.
Very
That if you
interesting
want
message.
change to happen, it has to happen. We are partly responsible for it as well. So we need to change that mindset for the mindset to change.
Sanjiv, the whole program is by Hoopsters, Parents Cafe. Okay, it's a initiative we launched because I, as a filmmaker and somebody who's published a children's magazine, saw things happening around in the society. Okay, I interact with people, I make documentaries and stuff like that. So the whole concept was the society was changing, but the issues were actually also going up. So we have created a platform on parenting especially, okay, and mental health and stuff like that. And our focus is on single parenting, adoptive parenting, and special needs parenting. How important do you think a platform like this is of relevance today?
I think it is extremely relevant, and I'm glad, Bala, that you thought about something like this, because 90% of the time, these stories are not even, in the domain. They remain between friends, and there's nobody to discuss about this. So number one, it's a very, very good and timely initiative. Number two, which I would like to really highlight, is in this whole story, what you and I actually didn't speak about was the children, or let's say the collateral damage. The entire collateral damage actually happens to the children while the separation was going on. I remember Abhimanyu, who was completely torn between mom and dad, where he wanted to stay with me and he did not want to stay with his mother because he was so attached with me that he actually, in the school, he did not board the bus saying, my dad will come and pick me up. And the school called me and said, if you're coming to pick your son up, you should tell us, because of him, the entire bus is getting late. And I said, no, I never told him that. I was not supposed to come and pick him up. Then I came to the school, and when he came in my car, he said, look, I don't want to go to mom's house. I want to come to you and stay with you. That was a very difficult juncture in my life where I understood what Abhimanyu was going through. And a part of me said, let me just keep him. I got my kid back. Wonderful, But I spent, and I did, to be honest, I did that. I told my ex-wife that, look, Abhimanyu wants to stay with me. So he stayed with me for 5 days. I couldn't go to office. I had no house help was gone. So some scenarios were there. But then, somewhere down the line, somebody told me just, within myself that, look, you can't do the same thing that the kid is going through a hassle, man. He would need his mother. Don't be the same person. And I went and I dropped him after 5 days. So the broader point is that if we really consider our next generation, or if we are really thinking about our next generation and children being extremely important as part of the society, who will be the future of our country, we must think about them at the core of anything that goes on. And I feel if these conversations don't happen, a lot of times people will just keep thinking about the same thing, it will be the same. So somebody has to bring that change. Somebody has to ignite those conversations. Somebody has to give a platform to tell people that, look, this is very important. If we don't address this now, it's going to be down the hill in the coming years, and then we'll blame the Western society and da da da. And so somebody has to take that initiative, and I'm glad that you've started something like this, Bala.
But tell me, Sanjiv, when I speak to a single mom, she's so willing to come and talk to me, talk on camera, or have a conversation with me. But I find that very few, almost, you're the first single dad who's agreed to come and speak on camera.
I mean, what should I say? Men are not very good.
Why is it? What prevents men? I thought men should be much more.
So let me tell you, I'm in a very good space right now to actually have this conversation. Imagine a man who has a 2 crore alimony and a 2 lakh per month maintenance to be given. Yeah. And then he has a narrative in the court, and his cases are in the court. So men are in a very, very tight spot as well, Bala, to actually come up and openly talk about it. They have so much of things, thrown at them that sometimes it might become very difficult for them to actually open up and talk about everything so candidly like I have. So let's give it to them. But yes, you're right. Men usually don't use these platforms. Or I know a lot of my group members who are writing letters and writing affidavits to central governments and governments to bring about that change. There are some very good pioneers in this field who are working a lot, but they are very, very rarely covered in the media. They are very rarely covered in the media.
No, that's the whole idea where we said, okay, the voices need to be heard. There must be both points of views, and there needs to be. Let's remove the stigma from the whole situation. Is what we are working on. So thanks, Sanjiv. Thanks a lot, and we should keep in touch. And I would really appreciate if you can tell your other friends who are going through similar situations to connect with Hoopsters and put in their stories and content. So the world needs to see it, and it's extremely important. And
I congratulate you for a very noble drive that you have started, and it would be my absolute pleasure and honor to contribute to this initiative that you've started, Bala. You're doing a great favor to a lot of people who might be deprived of their stories, and nothing better than hearing through their stories and bringing about that change that we all envision for.
Really wonderful. If you can share them, thanks a lot. Okay, guys, that was Sanjiv speaking to us in a conversation on single dads and their stories and what they go through. That's it for now from Hoopsters. Have a nice evening. Take care. Thanks, Sanjiv.
Thank you.